Hi, and thanks for watching Missouri Viewpoints, the program dedicated to the civil and informed discussion of the political, social, and economic issues that affect us all. I'm Mike Ferguson, and as always, we're coming to you from the Hard Bean Cafe in downtown Grandview. Well, this week, my guest is Missouri State Representative Mike Talboy, who represents the 37th House District. Now, the 37th District is in Kansas City. Representative Talboy, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, the 2008 legislative session is the second half of your first term in office.
Yes.
Has it been what you expected?
It's been everything and more. It's been a lot of what I expected, and then some new surprises that have come through.
Okay, now since 2005, the state's healthcare system has been completely revamped, starting right before you got into office. First, it was Missouri Health Net replacing the Medicaid system. Now it's Insure Missouri that the governor is promoting, and that he says is going to insure up to 200,000 people at discounted or low co-payment rates. How do you assess these programs, the changes they made, and the direction the state is taking with healthcare?
Well, obviously, the direction that we went in, where you start off by, cutting and slashing 70,000 kids and 100,000 individuals, some of which were elderly and disabled, and the working poor. I think that is a wrong step to start off with. Then when we went through Missouri Health Net, and we spent 52 hours in committee on the Special Committee on Healthcare Facilities going through how that process was going to work. I think that was enlightening in that we found out that there was not a big push to move eligibility levels to where people can actually qualify for this. And when you make under $300 a month and that's what you have qualified, I don't know really very many people that have anything else that they can pay for making $400 or $500 a month. And so that's an issue that I think has not been addressed, and the governor has not addressed in Insure Missouri.
What should the state's role in healthcare be?
And I know that there will be folks across the aisle that disagree with me, but my viewpoint of this is that the state's role in healthcare should be providing and making sure that we have access to those who need it. We keep prices down for those who can afford it, and we don't let it get out of control to the point where nobody can really afford to get sick in this country. And I think that is where we're heading, and you see hospitals, emergency rooms being overcrowded. We have uncompensated care at an all-time high, and to say that we have universal health care because we have the EMTALA law that says you can show up at an emergency room is not only the most inefficient, but it may be the most irrational system that anybody's incorporated so far.
I'm going to switch topics now. Talk about a couple of bills that you're co-sponsoring. House Bills 1462, 1509. Now, for those who are watching, 1402 would limit the terms and the interest that can be charged on what we know as payday loans, and 1509 would do the same thing to title loan lenders. Why is this issue important, and why should these regulations be enacted?
Well, it goes back to a time where the banks just had moved away from the small $500 or less loans, and you had an outcropping of these small loan providers that came up. And Missouri's done a better job than some states. Some states have no control on how much interest and what the terms can be. But I think that at this point in time, especially with the rise of the economy being in flux, it gets to the point where it's almost predatory lending. And I think that if we're going to make sure that everybody is above board in what they're doing, we just need to make sure that we don't let our citizens who are in dire need get taken advantage of. And so I think making some sort of cap on how they accumulate that interest and what the terms of that would be, I think it makes smart sense to protect folks, especially folks who are in a situation that they can't get out of.
Okay, now here in the Kansas City area, both urban and suburban, we all have our eyes on the efforts to redevelop downtown Kansas City. How would you assess the progress that's being made in downtown Kansas City?
Well, downtown Kansas City, the city center area is my district, and I have the Crossroads and Crown Center, and I live downtown. So I think that it's it's been a great success. I'd like to see us build upon that success. You're starting to see the Crossroads start to take off. You're starting to see the West Side, neighborhood groups and people are starting to pool their efforts. And I think that if we can figure out a way to build downtown Kansas City, 18th and Vine District, the West Side and the Crossroads, to have kind of a triangulation of sorts across that 18th Street corridor into downtown, I think we look at the city's revival back to when it was the epicenter of Kansas City.
What does the state have a role in this development, financially or otherwise?
Well, the state has a role in how it deals with the TIF aspects and the tax increment financing legislation. Modessa obviously played a huge role in getting Kansas City back into being able to take advantage of some of those things in Modessa, which was passed in the early 2001-2002 session, I believe. The changes were made to it. And so that's kind of where we're at this point, is that we don't do a lot with the actual hands-on, but we set up mechanisms that if the right people come in and take advantage of it, we can use. Okay,
now this program goes out statewide. Why should someone in Kirksville or Rolla or Springfield or someplace like that care about the development of Kansas City from a state perspective, and why should they be okay with state funding and their tax dollars paying for it?
Well, quite honestly, it's because their tax dollars will then come back to them in the revenue that is generated, whether it be through sales tax or other types of revenue generators. When you have Kansas City and St. Louis, when they prosper, the whole state will prosper, because all that money gets dumped in. It doesn't stay in Kansas City. The state monies go back to the state, and then that goes out to fund things like your schools, your developments in Kirksville or Rolla or the Boot Heel. Cape Girardeau is a classic example. They've now redone their downtown, and they've done some things, as has Branson. And Branson's money that comes in goes back to the state, but that money comes back to them in a larger quantity than what they would do on their own.
I'm going to switch topics one last time. You're supporting legislation that would refuse compliance with the Federal ID Act, or the Real ID Act,
yes.
Excuse me. Why?
Well, quite simply, I really am scared of what happens when you have carte blanche access to our civil liberties and things where when you walk into a bank, it scans your card and it has an RF that you can then have that card linked to your bank account and all sorts of different things. And what happens to that information? I mean, identity theft is at an all-time high. We don't have mechanisms that prevent people from really being able to have access to fix that when it comes about, and it takes anywhere from a year to 18 months to 2 years. And now we're going to put everybody on the same card, and it seems to me that the plan was a very reactionary plan, and it hasn't been well thought out, and there is a larger issue with the transparency of everyone's information being held on one card, and I don't think that's a good idea.
All right, Representative Talboy, thank you for coming down to Grandview and being on Missouri Viewpoints. Thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in again next week. And when you come to Grandview, try the almond raspberry chai tea. We'll see you next week.